The morning mist clung low to the ground, swallowing the edges of a forgotten alleyway behind an old warehouse. Trash cans lay overturned, water dripped from rusted gutters, and in the cold shadow of a broken wall lay a mother dog, her body curled tightly around a small, still bundle. Her name, once called softly by someone she trusted, was long forgotten. Now only silence answered her cries. Her puppies were gone. She had been there all night, her nose pressed against their tiny bodies, nudging them as if trying to wake them. Her whimpers were soft, raw, the sound of a heart breaking in real time. Each time the wind blew, she shivered, pulling them closer, trying to shield them from a cold they could no longer feel. No one knew how long she'd been there. The neighbors said they had seen her days earlier, searching through garbage, her belly heavy with unborn pups. They said she looked scared but determined, as if holding on to some fragile promise that soon everything would be okay. But the world can be cruel to the voiceless. When the storm came that night, she found this corner, a patch of dry ground beneath a leaning metal sheet, and gave birth alone. Her whines had mixed with the thunder, unheard by anyone. She licked each puppy gently, her instinct stronger than her pain. But the rain didn't stop, and the cold crept in. By morning, her newborns had stopped moving. Still, she stayed, because mothers don't give up. As the sun rose higher, the street came alive, the sound of traffic, the buzz of voices. Yet in that small corner, time seemed frozen. She licked one tiny paw again and again, hoping it would move. It didn't. She let out a low cry, deep from her chest, then lay her head down beside them. A delivery worker passing by noticed her first. He stopped, confused, watching the thin brown dog lying motionless beside the small, lifeless forms. At first, he thought they were sleeping. Then he saw the truth, and his chest tightened. He stepped closer, but she lifted her head, baring her teeth weakly, protecting them even now. Her ribs showed through her skin, but her eyes, those dark, hollow eyes, burned with something fierce and unbroken. Love. He knelt down, speaking softly. "It's okay, girl, I'm not here to hurt you." He placed a small piece of bread on the ground and stepped back. She looked at it, then back at him, unwilling to leave her babies. He realized she wouldn't eat, not until they did. He called for help. An hour later, a rescue van arrived. 2 volunteers approached slowly, whispering to her like she was a frightened child. She didn't move, only whined softly when they reached for the puppies. When the first volunteer gently lifted one of the tiny bodies into a towel, the mother whimpered, not in anger, but in despair. She pressed her nose against the towel, as if to memorize the scent one last time. The rescuers wrapped her in a blanket and carried her to the van. Inside, she trembled silently, eyes fixed on the box that now held her puppies. She didn't understand where they were going. She only knew they were leaving the place where everything had ended. At the shelter, she refused food for 2 days. Volunteers tried everything: warm broth, soft chicken, gentle words. But she just stared at the wall, ears flicking only when she heard the faintest sound, as if she was still listening for her baby's cries. She would curl in the same tight circle every night, her nose pressed to the empty space beside her. Then one evening, a young woman named Claire sat beside her cage. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered, "you don't have to be alone anymore." She stayed for hours, talking softly, reading out loud from an old paperback, her voice low and calm. The mother dog, who the shelter now called Hope, began to shift slightly, her ears twitching, her eyes following Claire's hands as they moved. Over the next few days, Claire became her anchor. She was patient, feeding her by hand, sitting quietly until Hope finally rested her head on her lap. The moment was small, but it felt like a miracle. Weeks passed. Hope started walking again, slowly exploring the shelter yard. She sniffed the grass, lifted her face to the sun, and for the first time in a long time, wagged her tail just once, but enough to make everyone watching smile. The scars on her body began to fade, though the ones in her heart took longer. One afternoon, the shelter received a litter of orphan puppies, barely a week old. They cried endlessly, weak and frightened. When Hope heard their cries, something inside her changed. She ran to the gate, whining, tail trembling. Claire opened the pen cautiously, holding one of the tiny pups. Hope sniffed it gently, then lay down, curling around it as if it were her own. The puppy quieted instantly, pressing against her warm chest. From that moment, she became their mother. She cleaned them, nursed them, guarded them through the night. The shelter staff watched in awe, a mother who had lost everything finding purpose again in saving others. Months later, a family came to adopt. A kind couple with 2 kids walked through the shelter, stopping at every pen, until they saw Hope lying in the sunlight surrounded by her new litter. "That one," the little girl said softly. "She looks like she has a story." When they met her, Hope wagged her tail shyly, her eyes calm and wise. The woman knelt down, tears in her eyes. "You've been through so much, haven't you?" she whispered. Hope licked her hand, not out of fear or need, but gratitude. The paperwork was done within an hour. When Claire led her to the car, Hope looked back one last time, her eyes meeting those of the puppies she had nursed. She didn't whine this time. It was as if she knew they would be okay, just like she would be. That night in her new home, she curled up beside the little girl's bed, sighing deeply. Outside, the rain began to fall softly, tapping against the window. But this time, she wasn't alone in the cold. She was surrounded by warmth, safety, and love. The world had taken so much from her, but she never stopped giving. Because some hearts, no matter how broken, still know how to love endlessly. And somewhere, beneath the sound of the rain, if you listened closely, you could almost hear the faint heartbeat of all she'd lost, now living on in every puppy she saved, and every person she touched.